Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of jakestake.com, a pop culture and entertainment news website. It is episode 84, and I am very lucky to welcome two guests today. One is an actor who is well known for playing Lucifer on Supernatural, Deputy Bill Standall on 13 Reasons Why, Jacob Elyachar and Clayton Haas on Quantico. Please help me welcome Mark Pellegrino.
How you doing, Jacob?
I'm doing great, Mark. Let's introduce everyone to your co-founder. He is an internet attorney, author, adjunct law professor, and media consultant for ABC, Fox, and NBC. Please help me welcome Andrew Rossow.
Hi, Jake. Thanks so much for having me.
All righty. I'm very excited because you guys are talking about I've developed a new reality docuseries called The Guardian Project, which deals with public bullying on social media.
We have. Definitely. It's an issue today that I think everybody can benefit from hearing more about and taking an active stand in their own local communities.
Awesome. So, Mark and Andrew, can you please describe how you met to my audience?
Andrew asked me to do a cameo for his anti-bullying site, Cyberbites. Which I did, and apparently it was a success, and he liked it and asked me for an interview. So I gave him an interview. It lasted about an hour, and then we talked for almost 2 hours after the interview and discovered that even though we come from completely different universes and are in two different generations, we had a great deal in common. We grew up with similar issues and were subjected to the same types of problems. And we both developed a rampant hatred for bullying and a desire to stamp it out, and decided to team up and become partners in an effort to end this crazy bully culture that we're seeing out there.
I totally agree, and I think that's a great cause. And can you please describe the origin story of the Guardian Project to my audience?
Yeah, for me, it came as a result of being bullied multiple times. There are about 3 waves of intense bullying that attacked me for various reasons. We can get into the details later if you want, but we don't have to for the moment. But at the last wave of bullying, there were a group of fans who circled the wagons around me and were posting the truth in response to the lies that the people were spreading virally. And when I talked to one of them privately, and she joked that she was my bodyguard, and out of that came the notion of the Guardians, and then this sort of informal group of people, a group of fans that circled the wagons around me, called themselves the Guardians. And we thought it would be a good idea to make that more generalized, so that it's not just me getting protection from people, but anybody who's being bullied or attacked or the victim of false narratives. Maybe a Guardian could come to their rescue and help them too. And that's how it originally started, and then it blossomed into something else with Andrew and I.
Awesome, Andrew. Can you share what the other half?
Yeah, you know what? It's a really fulfilling opportunity, I think, for both Mark and I, at least from my perspective, because while Mark and I have similar stories, we also come from different worlds. We grew up, differently, different atmospheres, and our understanding of how the world operates, is different, but today it's not really that different because we share in this common vision and passion for standing up for those who don't know how to stand up for themselves, or giving a voice, lending a hand to those who feel that they're isolated and alone. And I think the ability for somebody like Mark, who built up a wonderful name for himself throughout his work in Hollywood and elsewhere, for that gap to be bridged between just the everyday person like myself, whether it's a law professor or a fan, to be able to come together and work together for a common cause. And I know for me, it's fulfilling to be able to give back and say thank you to Mark and thank you to the community that Mark has created and built over the years. And I'm grateful to be a part of it.
I don't hear you, Jacob. Just so you know, you're muted.
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. So there are 4. I apologize. There are 4 tiers of the Guardian Project I really want to talk to you guys about, and that really stood out to me.
Cool. Go ahead.
The first and primary tier of the Guardian Project, it's via like Catfish Style. So where you guys confront the victimizers and empower the victims to get justice. So why did you two and your team decide to use this approach?
Well, we both reasoned that the problem, the overall problem, is anonymity, and anonymity on the part of the victimizer, who can throw stones from the crowd and then disappear back into the horde with no consequences, and anonymity on the part of the victim, because to the victimizer, the person he or she is hurting is just an abstraction. They're just a handle, or they're just a check mark. There's somebody whose pain and anguish they can't relate to and don't care to relate to. And so we thought if we took that away in the form of an investigatory show that we're able to find the victimizers and the victims and place them in the same room together, that would automatically take away anonymity. That would humanize the victim to the victimizer, and that would bring about the possibility of a form of rehabilitation. Where they could heal one another, and or the possibility of another form of justice, which maybe Andrew can talk about, or any other direction he wants.
Yeah, to add on to Mark's point, the ability to provide that rehabilitation to an aggressor, to somebody who at any point in time has thought it to be okay to directly attack somebody or to target somebody because they didn't agree. This allows us to help visualize the epidemic, this very nasty culture. And it's nothing new, right? Cyberbullying has been talked about for years. You can read about it. And with the technology today, people don't want to read anymore. People are able to absorb information in a variety of ways. That's why platforms like TikTok and Instagram Live, and even what we're doing right now, Jake, with, this live stream, a lot of people resonate with content if they can see it and hear it. And I feel that by creating this type of project, at least on this first tier, of being able to visualize the problem, for individuals to see it, to see how detrimental it could be to somebody's mental health and emotional state, maybe that's the way to do it. But it's not to capitalize off, a victim's, frustration and anger, but to give that victim, with their consent, a platform to be themselves, to share their frustrations, and to speak out to people who for whatever reason think cyberbullying is not a crime and not a problem.
And also I just want to sort of add to that. That's the emotional aspect. That's for people who have been emotionally bullied. For people who have experienced real objective damages from false narratives that are being spread around, we think that a show like this can offer them the resources to actually get some form of justice and actually be and some form of restitution for the damages that are caused. So on the one hand, for just flat out bullies and mean people, humanizing the victim can go a long ways towards rehabilitating the victim. But for those who go as far as to spread libels about another person and ruin their career and actively attempt to ruin their career, those people need to be held accountable in the criminal justice system or the civil justice system, whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately, laws differ across states, and I know in my state of California, defamation lawsuits are extremely expensive and very difficult to prove. So a person needs a lot of resources to be able to bring a suit against somebody who is, in effect, spreading false news. I mean, nowadays, I think we're all content providers. We're all journalists, in a sense. And if you're spreading news about somebody, it's more than gossip, particularly if it has an effect on their career. It's a sort of news, and you should be held accountable the way a journalist would be held accountable, I think. And so that's what we want to do, is provide resources for people who wouldn't be able to handle the overwhelming expense of taking these people to task the way they need to be taken to task.
And the laws need to change. They need to change. And they're slowly starting to. I mean, we're seeing it with, the Mark Zuckerberg and, these types of hearings where, even though, I think Mark and I agree that Congress and government should not really get involved in this, people are starting to ask the right questions for the first time. People want to understand the technology that they're using. But in order to do so, we need to make sure our laws are playing catch up.
I 100% agree. I want to talk to you guys about the second tier. So the second tier of the Guardian Project will involve civilian support and protection for the victims through virtual neighborhood watches. Can you describe how these neighborhood watches would work?
Well, it's sort of like what happened with me. A group of people informally gathered around me and protected me. They had accumulated evidence on my behalf and used it to fight against the people who were throwing out the phony narratives. And so it's basically anybody who has the stomach to fight this sort of thing, putting the Guardian in their profile as a symbol of standing for reason and justice and peaceful exchange with others, and then going out and when they can, if it happens across their feed that they see someone being extremely abusive and dishonest, to let the person who's being abused know that they're not alone. I mean, one of the primary things these abusers do that is so terrible and insidious is they separate the person from everybody else. They isolate them. They make them feel alone, and then they all they all network attacking this person en masse. And that person needs to know that they're not alone, that they're supported, that they have emotional support. And even if the Guardian has information that can counter the narrative, they have a form of argumentative support as well. But it's very informal at this point. I would love to make it a formal organization, but at this point, it's just informal.
But it includes bringing in, other legal professionals, attorneys, psychologists, psychiatrists, just not necessarily to provide the services themselves, but to be there as a comfort, as another, hey, we have your back. This is unacceptable. And knowing that people are in your circle, that goes a long way. It really does.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, the Raw Nerve Project that you've started is a place where people who are victims of bullying can seek guidance and help. They can vent, they can get feedback, and hopefully we're trying to link with various mental health apps and organizations that we could integrate with our world to lend support to people who are victims of this kind of online brutalization.
Yeah, absolutely. Having psychologists being able to produce content, no charge, just to, produce their content, extend their profession and their passion into a community who needs it, who wants it. And that's what we're trying to build right now, and bringing in the right people for the right cause.
And wonderful. So the third tier involves partnerships with tech startups, which promotes contractual relationships between social media participants. So could you describe how these contractual relationships would look like?
Sure. Look, I mean, you have a number of organizations that are activists, anti-bullying activists, and who build technologies that are designed to help reduce that mental emotional harm, but also from Mark's standpoint, from an objective damages standpoint, reduce the chances of a company being harmed, a reputation being damaged. So in this tier, it would be looking for other organizations that share our vision, but also have the resources to implement. Maybe it's the Guardian Project coming in to an already existing social network platform that is built for kids by kids, right? And implementing certain resources. So being able to link up, because the more organizations that are fighting the cause, the better. But in my opinion, Mark, but in my opinion, they can't just operate by themselves, or rather, it doesn't make sense for everyone to operate by themselves. Who's to put one anti-bullying organization up against another, right? They're doing the same thing, so why not work together whenever possible? And being that, Mark, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
I definitely think that the social media platforms themselves need to get objective standards for what constitutes a libel, what constitutes speech that is not allowed. At present, I think they have algorithms that are informed by linguistics that I don't think really wind up being objective. And then I think we want to work for a universal verification process where everybody's identity is tied to their handles, and that identity follows them across social platforms because the social networks share those identities with each other. And if you're a bad actor on one, you get banned. And the ban is permanent. You can't come back under another handle, under a fake email, and start harassing people again. You're just done. I also think that we want to work for social media platforms splitting off two different platforms, one for adults and one for people under the age of 18. And for those people under the age of 18, you can have much stricter electronic modeling and parental oversight, and hold the parents accountable for what their kids are doing online. Because this last wave of bullying that I experienced from February on, where these kids were linking social media influencers and my fellow actors and my bosses to false narratives. These are 15, 16-year-old kids who are very sophisticated, and when push comes to shove, hide behind their age, when things start getting a little bit rough. Well, if their parents felt the pinch of this, if they knew that their kids were online trying to destroy the careers of other people, perhaps that would make this stuff stop. And I think the way to do that is to separate platforms and put lots of oversights over the kids and lots of parental responsibility, including financial responsibility for whatever the kids do.
I have to agree on that because I've noticed a lot of, as a journalist and podcaster, I've noticed a lot of stuff going on, and particularly with the Big Brother community and the challenge communities. They're both very toxic waste pools, and there are people that attack each other through that. And some people are like, I'm surprised that there are kids like that, and also other stuff as well. So I really hope that the Guardian Project is able to help other people go on like that, because I've noticed a lot of house guests come out into the masses and get attacked.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Wow.
You shouldn't be able to hide behind an age. Jake, I don't know if you've ever played Call of Duty or one of those online games, but you put the headset on and you hear people in what's supposed to be good fun yelling at one another. And then one of them starts, I know right now it gets really racist and culturally insensitive on there with the language that's used. And God forbid you respond and say, hey, not cool. Then you hear, a mom or dad in the background saying, hey, you don't talk to my son like that. They're just 13. Why are they on? Right? You're watching.
And why are they saying those words in front of you? And why are you not taking that away from them?
Right.
And, I don't want to say that.
Go ahead.
I don't want to say that we're going to do the parents' job for them, but we're definitely going to make it easier for them, I hope.
Very much.
I agree, and I really hope that happens. So the final tier is the legal platform, and that empowers the victims to seek legal restitution against those who would use social media platforms to harm their reputations and the lives of those they don't agree with or like. So how would this be enforced? Because sounds like you probably need all 50 states to be a part of it.
Look, there's a paper trail, so to speak, traditionally, where you need to have hard paper proof of these types of damages that somebody is being directly targeted. Well, in the law, you have theories like the effects principle, where the conduct that a person in state A directly does or inserts into state B with a purpose is almost, depending on the circumstances, could be considered enough to render that aggressor in state A almost as being in state B. So basically, Jake, if you're state A and I'm state B and Mark's state C, Jake, you can say, you know what, I'm in state A. I'm going to do something purposely to target Andrew and Mark. I'm going to bully them. I'm going to tag them specifically in tweets. I'm going to take content of theirs and make sure that I tag their employers, their friends directly, that they know that they are being targeted. Even though I'm not physically in California or Florida, I'm doing so much as if it could be said that I'm basically in California and Florida at the same time. That is the effects theory, basically removing that physical barrier that, traditionally speaking, we need. So by creating this docuseries and having individuals share their stories, being able to put a tweet up on, the screen or messages, it creates a new digital paper trail of, hey, this is what's happening. You can delete the tweet, but it's still there. It's still been captured, screenshotted, all of the above. Mark, I don't know if I left anything out, but
well, I think that since these libels take place across state lines, it's very legitimate to approach the federal government with respect to making laws that define principles a lot more clearly, and empower people from different states to bring lawsuits against others. Because it's just now a reality of life that we're not separated by geography the way we used to be, and people cross state lines in nanoseconds now on media, and they can be held accountable. So I think there is a justification for taking it to the federal level.
All righty. So, well, thank you so much for talking about all four tiers. I think my audience is very informed by hearing all this. So we got to move on. We got to talk about the challenge that both of you and your team faced for bringing the Guardian project to fruition. So how have you guys overcome those obstacles so far?
Well, I mean, we have gotten another wave of bullying because a number of people, I think, are seeing their lives flash before their eyes. The Guardian Project is a real threat to their self-esteem because they get their self-esteem by destroying other people's reputations online, and they certainly don't want that to happen. Oddly, not so ironically, Guardians have amassed around the Guardian Project to protect it from those bullies as well. And so far, there's been a very vigorous online debate respecting the efficacy of our project. And I'm sure they're doing their best to try to keep the project from being funded. But what they need to know is this isn't the only crowdsourcing method that we can use to fund our project. And if it doesn't go through Kickstarter, we're going to do it some way or another. We're not going to stop until we have the pitch platform produced and we're pitching it to various networks. So there's nothing they can do to stop us.
That is good to hear because, in all honesty, God forbid Kickstarter doesn't work. This project needs to be moved to another place and have other places. I think there will be a number of people rallying who've been cyberbullied that will support you guys no matter what happens.
Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
All right. So how do you hope that the Guardian Project can partner with various people that range from entrepreneurs to the U.S. members of the House of Representatives and the United States Senate?
I think everybody has a story, Jake. I think whether you're an entrepreneur, an actor, an attorney, a professor, or just, a college student, everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has some sort of experience where they have been called out in manners that were designed to bring them down, to harm them, to prevent them or restrict them from moving forward with something that was important to them. And I think in today's day and age, especially for those, in the U.S. House of Representatives, the Senate, Congress altogether, there's a lot of mothers and fathers out there. There's a lot of aunts and uncles out there and grandparents who have the ability to relate in the sense of, what if it was my child? What if it was my grandson, my granddaughter? And I think that's enough. And I think that's really the way to have our message heard, is putting ourselves in the shoes of others, especially as a parent. It's not going to be easy. It's not an overnight process. There's going to be, as Mark said, there's going to be a lot of people that will come in waves that think that they can bring it down, or, hopefully not, but legislators that may not even think that this deserves to be heard. But, when you put your child in there and say, what if this is happening to my child? Would I want somebody to tell me that this isn't real? Would I want an attorney who, as a legislator that I'm hiring for my own personal family, to tell me that, my child just needs to suck it up and that there's no real harm here, or there's no real harm to the reputations? Absolutely not. So I think that's the first step, is, again, going back to my point, is of humanizing both the emotional side of it, but also the objective harms that come from it.
And I think entrepreneurs, I don't look to anyone in Congress to creatively solve any problem at all. I generally tend to look at them as exacerbating problems. But I look to, individual minds in the community who are looking to satisfy needs to solve problems. And our platform is sort of an integrating platform, a mechanism to deliver certain services to people. And I think that's very interesting to various entrepreneurs out there who are delivering sort of piecemeal services to people that can be united under one umbrella, so that a person who's a victim of this kind of violence can now seek multiple types of services under one umbrella. And so I look to these problems being solved by us in the community putting our heads together and figuring out what to do about it.
Awesome. Before we move on from the Guardian Project, I got to talk to you guys individually about some of your accomplishments. Mark, I want to start with you. You have worked on a plethora of television projects that range from Dexter and Lost to 13 Reasons Why and Supernatural. As an actor, what does it mean to you to be part of these fan favorite shows?
I'm very fortunate. I mean, I'm not religious, but I feel blessed in the sense that I had the opportunity to work on shows that became popular, and that's enabled me to have a platform with folks. Additionally, I think I've been fortunate enough to work on two shows that have a real impact on the fandom psychologically. Supernatural and 13 Reasons Why. Supernatural is less direct, but the heroic world that it presents really serves as a salve to people who feel depressed and feel like the world is overwhelming them. They see two guys defying even God to win. It's very inspiring. And with 13 Reasons Why, that show dealt directly with our responsibilities to one another and how we communicate with one another and how much impact that communication has on every life. That was a very important message, I think, and I was grateful to be a part of it. And I think that Andrew and I are sort of are acting out the ideal in that show, which is the higher law of real justice and love and reason, as opposed to the letter of the law. And that's what our project represents. It represents people standing for innocent people and defending them against violence.
And we
Alrighty, Andrew.
We'll keep it going, and it's going to be a tough fight. But as a lot of people say, just keep fighting, keep it going.
Awesome. Andrew, I want to bring up, Mark brought up Cyberbites, and how I would love to learn more about that. So how has Cyberbite been able to help kickstart the Guardian Project? And also, who are some of the other celebrities that you have had conversations with?
Sure. Well, I started Cyberbite about 4 or 5 years ago. And in my capacity as a journalist as well, you come across a number of individuals with talents and portfolios of different successes. And, I realized along the way that as I was able to speak to an actress, an actor, a musician, a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, that everyone seemed to have some sort of opinion towards social media and the technology, and hordes of people that didn't always agree with them. And I said, you know what? For the fan bases and the community and the following that each of you have, maybe they need to hear it from you. For whatever reason, individuals like to put one another on a pedestal, and I guess that's okay. But if that's the way it goes, then why not use that pedestal to share positivity? So I felt that having, as the first two, both Gareth Emery, who's a renowned DJ out in LA, and Mark's co-star Misha Collins from Supernatural, by them sharing a video PSA, 30 to 60 seconds of maybe an experience that they've had personally with bullying to their community, maybe that's a way for their community to connect even closer or better with them in a way that maybe they wouldn't have done before, because it's coming from those individuals. So it started as a hashtag, and then it ended up going around at the FanX Salt Lake Comic Con, where a lot of the talent and, public figures there were willing to graciously share a message to their fans live. And, I've been grateful to have a number of individuals, going back to Mark's co-stars, Samantha Smith from Supernatural, and Elena Huffman, Chris Hansen from How to Catch a Predator, Jennifer Lee Cohen from Nike. So there's so many individuals that have a story to tell. And I really look for certain individuals that would make a good representation, who have, that story that people can resonate with. And, it's of course always open to anybody who wants to join. But in terms of that kind of Silicon Valley Hollywood, I try to find individuals who stand for, what Mark and I believe, who have those same values and morals, and, give back. And for those who aren't willing to or aren't ready for it, that's okay. But, it's open. And it led me to Mark. I followed Mark's journey on, at least online, with those waves of trolls, and noticed that, it happens to everybody, and it shouldn't. So that was one of the reasons I reached out to Mark as well.
All right, I have 3 more questions for you guys before we wrap up. So I want to ask people of my audience who may have been bullied, cyberbullied. What is the best advice to give to them if they've been cyberbullied or ridiculed on social media? What would be some of the best advice that you give to both? I would love to hear both of your opinions.
I mean, I could tell you from personal experience that fighting back is probably the worst thing you can do. Because it's not like the bully in the playground where, the person had the physical courage to confront you and risk getting punched in the nose in return for their risk. Relational aggression is very different, and some of these people have a mindset that actually I don't know how to say this. It thrives on your pain, suffering, and on your desire to fight for your reputation. It only enhances their credibility to their crazy mob, and it attracts other people to the fight. So if you are being cyberbullied, block instantly. Block them. And don't address them at all. Treat them as if they don't exist, because they thrive on negative attention.
Awesome, Andrew.
They win. And to add to Mark's point, they also thrive on the fact that they get your attention, right? The minute you respond, the minute you give them that recognition, they know that they have you. And now they know no matter what they say, you're going to be seeing it. And they're going to work even harder to make sure they get you where it hurts. So to Mark's point, definitely don't do the eye for an eye type deal. No matter how much you want to, it's going to be the first thing that comes to mind is I have to defend myself. Yes, but you don't need to defend yourself, or justify rather, to a stranger like that who hasn't given you the opportunity to get to know you, to ask you questions. There's a difference between accusing, shouting, and screaming at somebody versus asking them, wanting to know their opinion. Okay, so most of the time, just hit the block button, because no matter what you say or whatever you respond with, you can best believe that they're going to take those responses and spend however much time that they have crafting a brand new response and taking whatever you've just said to defend yourself out of context to then create an entirely new narrative. And Mark, I know that, you've seen that, firsthand. So
yeah, and I just want to say it's nearly impossible to relate to the mindset of somebody who thinks it's who thinks it's a good thing to hurt others. If you're a decent person who happens to be on the receiving end of this stuff, you think that reason is going to appeal to them, but it doesn't. Yes, these folks do exist. These pathological human beings exist who have a completely different relationship to pain and suffering than a normal human being does, and you will not change them any more than you would change a tiger by trying to reason with it. You're not. So leave them alone. Let them go. Let them die in obscurity where they belong.
Awesome. So where can my audience, how can my audience support the Guardian Project?
You can find me on Mark R. Pellegrino, at Mark R. Pellegrino on Twitter, or Mark Ross Pelly, MarkRossPelle on Instagram. And Andrew,
and on Twitter, I'm at Rosso ESQ, and Instagram at CyberGuyESQ. And both Mark's profiles and mine link directly to the Guardian Project social media, to the Guardian Project on Kickstarter. There's a wonderful video that Mark has taken the time to record and share with prospective patrons. And lastly, don't be afraid to reach out. That's my other tidbit of advice is it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to tell somebody that you're hurting and you don't know what to do. It's not giving up your dignity. You're not throwing the towel in. You're asking for a helping hand. And you would be surprised how many people would come to your aid if you just ask for it. And that's what Mark and I try to do. Feel free to reach out. And we do try to respond to as many people as possible because everybody has a story and we're here to help.
Awesome, guys. Now just here are some quick bites. So to download episodes of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast, head to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker. Just type in Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR podcast. This has been 2020 has been an incredible year for the podcast. We've had several people from America's Got Talent, including season 15 winner Brandon Lee, Christina Ray, Prince Poppycock, Barbalac, Sons of Serendip. We also had Big Brother icons such as Jody Rollins and Rachel Riley and Dr. Michelle Ross. We've also had Survivor legends such as Rob Cesarino and Ethan Zahn, and also up-and-coming artists. All those episodes are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker. And I'm on social media. So please subscribe to my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Once again, it's Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Now, for more interviews, more articles, and my music reviews, plus my coverage of America's Got Talent and The Masked Singer, head to jakes-tape.com. Once again, it's jakes-tape.com. Gentlemen, I'm very excited to say this. This is my last 2020 interview. So you're my last two guests of 2020, and this is an incredible interview to go off of.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Congrats.
And I wish you nothing but the best. And I really hope and pray that the Guardian Project will be able to help others in this new decade. All right.
From your lips to Dad's ears.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching and for listening. Until 2021, thank you for your time and consideration, guys, and have a great one. Goodbye.